Aprende inglés gratis con... okay, hold on, start that. Let's see, what's that? Mansion English, okay. Aprende inglés gratis con mencioningles.com y inglespodcast.com.
Hello, welcome everybody to Aprender Inglés con Reza y Craig, episode 58. Hi Craig, how are you?
Hi Reza, very well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks. Are you enjoying the weather here in Valencia?
I'm loving the weather, but I'm even more excited to tell everybody that today we're going to speak about job interview questions.
Useful stuff.
Do you know why? What do you think's been our most successful episode so far?
I don't know, tell me.
The episode we did on job interviews, where we practiced job interviews together, we had nearly 12,000 listens to that episode.
12,000?
So
wow.
With so many people wanting to listen, I thought we could go back and look at in detail at some job interview questions.
Yep, revision and consolidation's always good. For important language.
Exactly.
But what about, Craig, for listeners who might be new to the series? Shall we tell them a little bit about it?
Absolutely.
So we're on episode 58 of our podcasts, Aprender Inglés con Reza y Craig. You can find all the backdated issues if you go to www.inglespodcast.com. You will see the previous 57 episodes, including the one Craig mentioned about job interviews. Can you remind me the number of that one, Craig? What episode was the first job interview?
Yes, that was episode 43. So you go to inglespodcast.com/43. Shall we move on to listener feedback?
Yeah, let's get cracking with listener feedback. Craig, do you have any emails from anybody this week?
Yes, we got some feedback from Marianne, who says, "Hi, I have had little time recently to write on this page. Nevertheless, I've listened to the last podcasts. Thanks for your teaching. It's awesome to hear you again, knowing that your listeners are from all around the world. You make my effort easier for sure. Cheers." So thank you, Marianne.
Thanks, Marianne.
A huge fan who often comments on our blog page at inglespodcast.com. I also want to say thank you to Manuel Tarathoma, who has become a patron of the show. Thank you very much, Manuel. And if you're interested in supporting us, particularly to get some transcriptions for these shows, go to patreon.com. That's Patreon, patreon.com/inglespodcast. We also have an email, Reza, from Louis, who says, "Hi, Craig and Reza. Just to say hello and to tell you that it's great to have you as teachers. And I think Reza knows a lot of English."
Oh, we both do. Craig as well.
A little. We try. Could you tell me what to do if I need to study English in England and how hard it is? I mean, are there programs and how expensive is it? Reza, any comments?
Well, I don't think it would be right for us to suggest one particular place. It would sound like we're carrying out publicity, you know. Besides, no one has paid us to do so we're not going to.
Well, I'll correct you there because this is, I must say, a disclosure here. Disclosure is, I think in Spanish, revelación or divulgación. Mm-hmm. There's a website called aulaingles.es, aulaingles.es, and they have advertised with La Mención del Inglés in the past. So that's one place you could go to, Louis, to look for places to study and learn English in the UK. And one thing I like about Aula Inglés is that they also offer the possibility of working in the UK. Now, you're not probably going to be working in an office, or it's not generally professional places. It's more like casual work, for example, in a restaurant or babysitter or in a bar, but they will help you to find a job in the UK, which I think is what some people are looking for.
So they combine that with suggestions for English courses.
They have English courses that they can arrange for you, and they also have some job possibilities that they can help you find.
Wow, that's perfect.
So it's worth looking at. And there are many other sites that you could go to, Louis, to find information on study in the UK. But Louis also mentions that he knows that English from the US is a little different from England from the UK, English from the UK. So he's asking, could it be confusing to learn English in England? What do you think?
Well, I would ask you a question, Louis. Is it confusing listening to Craig and me in the same podcast? I don't think it is. And the English spoken in different parts of the UK is not all the same even. So I wouldn't worry about British English and American English because there are varieties wherever you go. Mm-hmm. It's not a huge problem. If you can speak Spanish that you learned in Spain, you'll be all right in South America. There may be a few words that you have to think about, but it's not a huge problem. It shouldn't present any difficulties.
Yeah, it's quite useful, I think, to compare the difference between American English and British English with Spanish mainland English and Latin American countries who are Spanish speakers. For example, the Spanish spoken in Argentina, in Chile, in Venezuela. It's similar, very, very, it's the same language, but there are differences in pronunciation, there are differences in vocabulary, but it's basically the same language. Mm-hmm. So I think it's also depending on what you want, Louis, as your, what kind of English do you prefer to learn? If you're living in America, then obviously you need to learn American English first. Louis also asks us, Reza, how we feel about living in Spain. How do you feel about living in Spain?
Well, we've both been here for a long time.
Donkey's years.
Donkey's years, yeah. We wouldn't have stayed here if we didn't enjoy it so much. So I think I speak for both Craig and myself when I say we really love Spain.
Yeah, it's absolutely. Well, I feel very happy and very comfortable here. I have lived in other countries, and Spain for me, obviously there are some problems sometimes. Nothing's perfect. But I've been here for 17 years and very happy, very content.
Craig, can you remind me, where's Louis from?
He doesn't say. I suspect he's from a country in Latin America because of the fact that he's looking at studying in England as maybe very different from US English. Mm-hmm. I think if he was from Spain, it would be automatic perhaps to go to the UK. So I suspect he's from a Latin American country. Mm-hmm. Anyway, thanks for your message, Louis. And we have a voice message now from Mamen, who has passed her B1 level.
Congratulations, Mamen.
Hi guys, this is Mamen. I am so happy because my partner just sent me a text that I passed my exam, so I almost a B1 girl. And thank you so much, kisses.
So congratulations, Mamen. That's fantastic news.
Well done, Mamen. And we hope you enjoy the photo that we've put on this episode just for you.
Yeah, Mamen was kind enough to send us a small gift in the post. So if you're interested to see what Mamen sent us, go to inglespodcast.com/58 for episode 58, and you can see the photo of us with Mamen's present. Moving on to vocabulary, job interview questions. Now, we spoke about job interviews and we gave a couple of example interviews in episode 43. So that's inglespodcast.com/43. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, we have nearly 12,000 listens to that podcast. How would you feel, Reza, if you were teaching a class of 12,000 students?
The very first thing I would do is to check that my flies are up. Your fly is your zip.
Your zipper.
I wouldn't want them to be down.
Your zipper in your trousers. Make sure that there's no one laughing.
Yeah. I once accidentally recorded a podcast with Craig, and my flies were down. But as we said before, lucky there's no video, so you didn't see that.
Lucky it wasn't a video podcast. So, that's incredible to me to have so many. And we want to thank all of you who are listening, because it really, really does motivate us to make these podcasts as good as they can be, because there's so many of you who like them and have given us great feedback. So thank you.
Craig, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What is the most intimidating class you've ever done? For me, it's working with the local police in Valencia, giving a class to 35 policemen, all in full uniform.
Were you worried that they were going to arrest you?
Yeah, at the beginning I thought I've done something very bad here, because there's 30 fully uniformed policemen and they're all looking at me. I was very uncomfortable, and I eventually got used to the idea that I was the teacher and I could boss them around.
But were they nice people?
Yes, they were. They were lovely. Some of them were good students. Some of them were awful, I'll be honest. But it was really weird how at first I felt a bit intimidated, 30 policemen. And then I realized, I can tell them what to do. I'm going to enjoy this. And I did.
Stand up on the chair and wave your arms around and sing Have an Aguila or something.
Yeah. What about you?
Not actually a lesson, but the most intimidating time I've been in front of people was when I had to give a presentation in Madrid with a group of British council managers from all over Spain. And I think the fact that they were A, managers, B, all dressed in suits, and 3, they were native speakers, they weren't students, then I felt almost inferior to them because I wasn't a manager. Mm-hmm. And it was a very short presentation. And strangely, I was co-presenting. So it wasn't only me. I was presenting with another teacher. But I got very, very nervous. My mouth got dry. My voice started shaking. And I think it was a very small panic attack. Mm-hmm. And we managed to do the presentation. But since that day, I've been trying to present more and do more of these presentations to get over, to recover from that fear. But that was the most intimidating time I've been in front of people. It was about 4 or 5 years ago.
It's all about confidence, isn't it? And not being nervous, because you had prepared that talk well before you did it, right?
Yep, I felt well prepared, but I didn't expect to feel so nervous standing up in front of these managers. Mm-hmm.
But if you hadn't prepared so well, you probably would have made a lot of mistakes because of your nerves, but you were well prepared. Yep. This is exactly why, listeners, you should make a big effort to prepare your English for things like job interviews.
Exactly.
Because let's be honest, you're going to be a little bit nervous, I suppose, but the better prepared you are before, the more that will cover your nerves.
Exactly. And you never know what they're going to ask you in a job interview, but you can prepare some things before the interview. You can prepare and you can research the company. Let's look at some particular specific questions that are quite common and that you may be asked at a job interview. Tell me about yourself. Mm-hmm. That's horrible, isn't it? Yes. How would you approach that? Now, this often comes at the beginning, doesn't it? One of the first questions could be, now tell me about yourself.
Well, I like to think I'm a reasonable man with a fairly well-balanced attitude on life. Though I know I have my defects, but I try to improve myself.
That sounds good to me. That sounds very good. I think it's also a good idea to think what things will benefit the company, what things that you can offer the company. For example, let me give you 2 possible answers. Which do you think is better, Reza? When someone asks, tell me about yourself. Well, I play basketball. Or I've just finished an advanced computer skills course.
The second.
Of course. It's directly related to the job. Another example, I have 2 children, or I enjoy talking to people and I'm a problem solver. For these reasons, I'd love to work in customer services.
The second.
The second. If you can tell things about yourself that will positively affect the company, help solve a problem that the company has, then that's obviously more useful than just saying, oh, I like playing tennis at the weekends.
Yes, and sometimes they often ask in an interview directly, what can you contribute to improve this company?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah.
They often ask that specifically.
They do. And that's why it's important to research the position or the job that you're being offered and to research the company to find out any problems the company might be having, what problems you could predict that might arise in doing the job that you're interviewing for.
What other questions are often asked in an interview, Craig?
Why would you like to work here? Why do you want to work for our company?
And that's another example of how important it is to research the company beforehand. Thank goodness for internet these days.
Exactly, you can check. Do you think a good answer to that, Reza, is because it's close to my house?
No, that would not be a good answer. Even if it's true, don't say it.
Don't say it. No, it's close to my house. I can walk to work. No, you want to research the company. You want to check the company's reputation. Maybe that's something that you really admire. Maybe you admire the company's products or services. Maybe the company has been given awards in the past. Find out the company's management philosophy, the company's values might be attractive to you. The position in the market, the growth and success of the company, all these things you can find on the internet, and they will help you to give a good impression at your interview.
Craig, can I ask you a question which is very typical in job interviews? Mm-hmm. What's your biggest weakness?
Well, I wouldn't give obvious weaknesses or strengths. I wouldn't say, well, I work too hard, that's my biggest weakness, or, well, I'm a perfectionist, that's my biggest problem, because many people say that. I would give a weakness that's possibly true, but also a solution of how I'm improving it or correcting my weakness. So, for example, I might say, it's often difficult for me to disconnect from technology. I'm always looking at my mobile phone. I'm always checking to see I have new emails. However, I'm learning to pay more attention to real life. I'm focusing more on my family and friends, on communication. So that could be a real problem, but it's also not necessarily a bad thing if you're constantly checking your emails. But then you also realize that you need to relate more to your family and not look at your phone so much.
Relate to your family and relate to your co-workers in person as well.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Another example could be, well, I'm very self-critical. I often criticize my own work, and I sometimes waste time constantly checking and rechecking things. So I'm learning to trust the quality of my work more and more. As a result, I've become more productive. So that's offering also a solution to a possible weakness.
Or another typical weakness that you might mention is to be too critical of other people.
Mm-hmm.
And you can say that although you have high standards, you realize that you've got to also look for the positive aspects of other people's work and not just be critical. That's the type of thing sounds good in a job interview because it shows that you expect high standards.
Yes, but also you're also becoming more tolerant and more accepting. Exactly. So yeah, just bear in mind that you can offer a weakness, but also offer a way that you're improving and working on that weakness to make it one of your strengths. Reza, good news, wonderful news.
What is it, Craig?
We now have a sponsor. Aprender Inglés con Reza y Craig is being sponsored by, drumroll, italki.com.
Oh, great. I've heard of italki.
We've spoken about italki in the past because we've been speaking recently about online solutions for students who want to practice more actively, practice their English with other people. And I'm really happy for two reasons about this sponsorship. First of all, I'm happy because of our wonderful listeners, that they've been listening every week. They've been telling their friends. They've been talking about us, writing reviews on iTunes. And I'm so happy. And I want to say thank you to all our wonderful listeners. And I'm also very happy that it's italki. Because of the solutions we've looked at, I think italki could be the most useful solution for our listeners to improve their English.
How does italki work, Craig?
Well, italki is a place on the internet. It's a website where you can learn and improve your English with a real teacher. Think about it. You listen to us. Maybe you do a few grammar exercises online. But if you really want to get fluent in English, you need a native English teacher teaching you on a one-to-one basis. And with italki, you choose the teacher, you choose the price, and you learn when you want to learn. You've got that flexibility as often you want and with a teacher you like. And for our listeners, italki are offering a free lesson. So you buy one, you get one free. You go to the website, you register with italki, and when you pay for your first 100 credits, then italki will give you 100 free credits extra. So go to inglespodcast.com/italki, italki. Just click on Start Speaking, find a teacher, and you will go automatically to the italki website where you can register for your first class. And we want to say thank you very much to italki for sponsoring Aprender Inglés con Reza y Craig.
What about this question, Craig? I haven't been for many interviews with people in Spain. The few I've been for have been mostly with foreigners. So I don't know if this is asked so much here. Have you ever worked for a charity? It's quite a common question in the United Kingdom. But in Spain, I'm not sure. Do you think it is?
Oh, well, again, I don't know, because I haven't had many, probably count them on one finger, interviews with Spanish people. But be interesting if it is a common question, please tell us and let us know. But how would you answer that?
Well, I have. And why not get in a little bit of free publicity to answer this question? I have worked, for example, on translations and other things for Galgos 112, the people in Spain who look after greyhounds. It's true. And I think that kind of area certainly impresses British employers a lot.
It does.
It shows that you have worked for nothing. So if you work for nothing, you're not afraid of work.
Mm-hmm. Or also projects that you support, maybe monetarily with money, or projects that you support by other ways that you could mention. For example, children in Africa, or poverty in Ghana, or schools in India. Anything that you're interested in. But that could be a question, I think, definitely. What about this one, Reza? Have you ever... what have you done? What have you done that you are most proud of?
That's a good question. So obviously you've got to give a good answer to this. For example, you don't want to say, well, I made a really good omelette yesterday.
Which may be true.
But it's got to be something a bit more impressive than that. I would think of things you've done for family, for friends, things you've achieved in previous work.
Do you think it's more correct to give a personal example or a professional example? Or doesn't it matter?
I don't think it really matters. What do you think?
No, I agree. I mean, this is the chance to let the employer know about some of your proudest achievements, whatever they might be. Awards you've won, a project you finished successfully, raising children. Maybe you're working on a book that you've nearly finished. Any personal or professional achievements that you feel satisfied of having done, I think is a good thing to mention.
Craig, here's a tricky question that a certain type of interviewer might ask if he wants to put you on the spot.
What does that mean?
To put someone on the spot means without warning, suddenly they put you in a difficult position. You need to give an impressive answer, a good answer like that.
An unexpected question, out of the blue,
which needs an answer right now, and you can't get away from it.
So ask me.
Here's one for you. Do you consider yourself an ambitious person, Craig?
That's a horrible question.
Tricky.
I'm thinking. Now, if I was thinking in an interview, I would say, well, actually, that's a very good question. And that's something that I've recently been given a lot of thought about. When I was younger, I did think of myself as fairly ambitious. I wanted to be very successful. I wanted to have a lot of money, a fast car, retire at a very young age. But as I've become older, I've looked at ambition in a different way. And now I get a lot of pride and satisfaction out of doing something well. I'm very ambitious in the respect of being, of leading a happy and fulfilling life, of providing for my family, and of doing a good job at work, so that I can be happy at the end of the day with what I've achieved.
Yeah.
For example.
I think that's a good answer. I think an interviewer is expecting you to say that you are in some way ambitious, but they don't want to hear, I would imagine. And I'm thinking of getting your job within the next year.
Exactly. I want to be
the director of this
where
company.
you're sitting next year. No, you don't. They don't want to hear that.
In that case, you're out the door. You don't want to be over ambitious. You want to be ambitious within your own limits, and
you can interpret ambition in many ways. You can be very ambitious to be happy. You can be very ambitious to give to others. So it's not necessarily a big house and a fast car.
Here's another classic question, Craig. Do you prefer working in a group or on your own?
I'm happy working either way.
Is the correct answer.
Is it?
Well, I'm joking. There is no correct answer, but it seems common sense to say that.
Yeah.
Because most jobs involve a bit of both.
So I enjoy collaborating, and I like being pushed in a team and pushing and reaching the best possible standards with co-workers. However, at the same time, I feel very competent to push myself and work under my own steam and set and reach my own deadlines. Yeah.
That's a very good expression, isn't it? To reach deadlines.
Reach deadlines, achieve goals, reach deadlines, and realize ambitions. Here's another one. What's the biggest challenge that you have overcome in your life so far?
Oh, that's a good question.
I mean, would you make that a personal thing or a personal story?
Again, I think it could be personal or it could be professional. If you have a good story to tell about previous work, it could be, for example, you could talk about how your boss set you a seemingly impossible task. Let's say it involved learning about very tricky technology. There was a tight deadline. It seemed like you'd never get there. Mm-hmm. But with the help of your colleagues and working together and extra work you did at home, you made the deadline and you achieved it and you learned a lot. You could mention that. Or it could be the challenge of, let's say, learning how to do something difficult, like imagine you wanted to get a pilot's license. Mm-hmm. And you went to lessons, it took a long time, but eventually you got your license, you learned how to fly a plane. That could be something as well.
I think it's important to tell a personal story, although I wouldn't probably go into very personal health details. I wouldn't say I had a horrible disease when I was younger. I would definitely relate it to the job I'm applying for. I think that's very important. Perhaps in my case, I would mention moving to a different country, learning another language, adjusting to a different culture, meeting the challenges that living in another country presents, that kind of thing. But it should definitely relate to the job at some level. Where do you see yourself 5 years from now? That's a horrible question, isn't it?
Yes, but very common.
Yeah, but I don't think they're asking for crystal ball predictions. They're not asking you to predict exactly what you're going to be. I think it's more testing that you're motivated, that you're a proactive person, you're hardworking. Because if you think of these similar questions, what are your long-term career goals? What are your ambitions for the future? What is your ideal job at this stage in your career? What are you looking for? How do you define success? What's most important to you in your career? All of these are really testing your motivation, aren't they?
Yes, I think so, yeah. And you need the right language to answer those questions in English. Some good ways to begin your answer are expressions like, I would like, for example, I would like to have learned how to do things which are new to me, or I would hope to, plus an infinitive, I would hope to have improved in my job and become more confident, or my aim is to, plus an infinitive, my aim is to contribute as much as I can to the company and perhaps earn a promotion someday.
I think that's I think you've hit the spot. You've put your finger on it exactly, that you should convince the interviewer you want to stay and grow with the company. I'm excited about growing with the company and taking on more responsibility over time. Or my goal is to have more management responsibility, get involved in your strategy, your company's strategy. But most importantly, I want to work for an organization where I can build a career. So to convince the interviewer that you want to grow with a company and be part of their vision.
You could say something like, I hope the company will in time consider me an important colleague.
A valuable member of the team.
Valuable, an essential member of the team someday.
Exactly. Very good. Do you have any more before we maybe look at questions that we should ask the interviewer at the end?
Yes, I've got a few tricky ones.
Okay.
It depends on the type of interview and it depends on the type of interviewer. But I'm afraid some questions can be very, very, very basic and direct. They can be, when are you free to work?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, when are you free to work? What do you answer for that? If you say, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, well, you said it. They might make you work it.
Yeah.
But if you don't give a lot of availability, it's not very impressive either. They think, well, this person said he's only free on Monday mornings and the rest of the week he's busy. He's not very useful. How do we go about answering that?
I would throw back a question at the interviewer, and I would say, what hours would be expected for this position? What can you speak about the responsibilities and the main job responsibilities that you would expect me to deal with in this position, and how many hours would you see this taking? Because then that would influence the salary, wouldn't it? That would influence how much they'll pay you. I would ask also if the job position exists at the moment, if there's somebody actually doing the job, and if there isn't, what vision they have, what plan they have for the schedule of the position they're creating.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of earning extra money, what about this one? Are you prepared to work overtime at short notice?
Overtime, we should explain, is horas extras.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
At short notice means with very little or no warning.
Mm-hmm.
For example, imagine it's Friday at 2 p.m. You're expecting to go home at 5 p.m., see the family, and the boss says to you, we've got an extra load of work. We must finish it before the weekend. Could you stay to 8 o'clock? Tricky one.
That is a tricky one. And of course, I think you'll agree that contracts in Spain sometimes are different from contracts that are offered in the UK. It's common in the UK for overtime to be paid overtime, not just expected by the boss. But depending on the job, of course, I would say that I would hope that good planning and anticipation of deadlines would prevent the need for people working at weekends. If there is a project that needs to be done by a certain date, if it's planned correctly, then that shouldn't happen.
Well, that may be so, but how are you going to answer that at the interview?
Well, that way, I mean, obviously it depends on the job, but if my job is to write a software program, then obviously there's a project manager, and that project manager should be the one who plans the project. He should be the one who says, by this date, this should be accomplished, and by this date, this should be done. So I think it's very much disorganization that you have to stay and work weekends, obviously depending on the job. If you've just released a product and you're in a growing company and there's incredible demand for sales of this product, then obviously you'd be expected to stay, and you probably would, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you'd expect some compensation or you'd expect something in return, I think.
Yeah.
Unless you've got shares in the company.
Yeah. Well, at an interview, I would definitely answer that, yes, I could be available some of the time, because if not, they might instantly take you off the list.
Mm-hmm.
I would answer something like, yes, I would be available at short notice, depending on the circumstances, or as requirements make it necessary.
But I also think it's important to realize your own self-worth. It's important to realize that you shouldn't be taken advantage of, that you have rights as an employee. So you should also realize that what you're worth as an employee, and not undersell yourself. Make sure that you're getting a good deal, a good contract for the job that you can do.
Craig, what if they asked you this? Were you content in your last job, your previous job?
You got to be careful with. You should avoid criticizing your last company too much, because maybe you'll bring the same attitude to your new company. You should avoid saying how bad your previous boss was. I think it's okay to say I didn't feel that I was challenged enough.
That's a good answer.
I would like to be challenged more in a new position. You could say that the opportunities for growth, personal growth and learning, were not as you would have liked in your last job. So I think you should promote yourself, but not at the expense of the previous company. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Just to say how you weren't fulfilled with the company, rather than what was wrong with the company.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And how you think that this new prospective employer will help you fulfill your ambitions.
Now, at the end of the interview, I think it's a good idea to ask some questions of the interviewer. Possible questions could include, how would you describe the responsibilities of this position?
So you're talking about questions asked by the interviewee?
Exactly.
To the interviewer?
Yes. So you are now, at the end of the interview, usually the interviewer says, do you have any questions for me? Would you like to ask us any questions? So can you think of any?
If you were to take me on, when does the job start?
Yep. To take someone on is to offer them the job, to give them the position. How would you describe a typical day or week on the job? That could give you a good impression of what it's like to work in the office or whatever. What are the biggest challenges of this job? Could be useful. What are the prospects for growth and advancement in this job? Would you like a list of references? You could offer some references from people you know, people you've worked for in the past. I think the one that I like is, when can I expect to hear from you? Because that makes it more like, you're going to phone me and let me know, you're going to contact me soon. When can I expect you to write to me or speak to me?
Yes, because it shows you're serious, and it also shows that you're enthusiastic and you want to start as soon as possible with them.
Exactly.
What about a question about how many people would be working in my team?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And who are they? To find out about team working, how you would fit in with the others.
Are there any other questions I can answer for you?
You as the interviewee would ask the
exactly.
interviewer. Okay.
Would you like to ask me anything else? Are there any other questions I can help you with to make sure that the interview is kind of finished with you? What about salary? Should you ask about salary during the first interview?
Oh, that old question. That's that old chestnut. Some people say yes, some people say no, some people say, I don't know.
What do you think? Imagine you're going for a job in a teaching academy, Reza, and you've got a fine CV and a wonderful work record. You would expect a decent salary, wouldn't you? Would you ask?
Personally, I do ask about salary. If it isn't mentioned in writing in another place. Sometimes salary is already mentioned in job advertisements quite clearly. In that case, I don't bring it up. I don't mention it at the interview. But some jobs are advertised without salary being mentioned. In that case, personally, I asked about it at the interview. I would say something like, so what could I expect as my starting salary?
Yes.
The expression starting salary is the salary, the amount of money you start on, which may not be forever. You hopefully will get more someday if you deserve it, but just to know what you can expect. And what kind of answer do you think the interviewer should give? What answer do you expect? Do you expect a hard figure or?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, obviously you want to know how much you're going to earn, but I think what's probably more common is the interviewer asking you how much you're earning at the moment.
Yes. Yes, sometimes they say, how much do you earn in your current job, or how much did you earn in your previous job?
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you tell the truth?
I might say something like, yeah, well, I would tell the truth, but I'd, again, deflect the question. I'd say I'm very interested in this position, but I would hate for a number to eliminate me from consideration. Because if we go forward, I'm sure we'll be able to reach an agreement. Mm-hmm. So what you're doing with that is you're avoiding the question, but you're pushing on that, yeah, I mean, if you're good for me, if I'm good for you, I'm sure we can reach an agreeable number. The bigger problem isn't the money, it's, am I good for your company? Is your company good for me?
Yeah.
Or if he pushes you or she pushes you, if you have to say, you could say, my present salary is X. I'm looking for the best offer based on my experience and education. What's the salary range for this position? So what kind of area are you guys in? What kind of salary are you thinking of for this position? So you've given the number because they've told you to give them the number, but obviously you're valuing your experience, your qualifications, and you're negotiating for a good salary. Anyway, anything else, Reza, or shall we end there?
I can't think of anything else.
Me neither. If you want to know how to write a CV in English, there's help in the June and July Mención Inglés newsletters, los cuadernos mensuales del Mención del Inglés. So I will put a link, an enlace in the show notes to this episode. That's inglespodcast.com/58 for episode 58. And if you are writing now I remind you that Reza and I spoke about this before. We recommend that you get your CV translated from Spanish to English by a professional paid translator. It's an important thing. It gets you in the door. So please, if you're looking for work, make sure your CV is correctly translated into English. However, if you'd like some tips and advice on how to write a CV in English, we have some information in the Cuadernos for June and July. So send us an email if you have any comments or questions. You can contact me at craig@inglespodcast.com, and you can contact Reza at belfastreza@gmail.com. And you can also record a voice message like Mamen on our webpage at inglespodcast.com. On next week's episode, word formation. We're going to speak about word formation and how to use prefixes and suffixes in English. So until then, it's goodbye from me.
Ta-ra.
Ta-ra? What's ta-ra?
Cheerio.
Oh, cheerio. And ta-ra, and ta-ra from Reza. Goodbye. The music in this podcast is by Puedes. The track is called See You Later.